Hi everyone, it's Telegram Sam. Um, I've been watching so many of the vinyl 2021 tag videos. I've probably watched hours and hours of endless videos, getting introduced to a lot of new channels and a lot of new music that I don't think I would have found out on my own. So yeah, I decided to do my own take on the vinyl 2021 tag. Um, so the first question, oh yeah, and this tag was created by Tales from the Crate, another great VC YouTube channel. So go check out his stuff. Um, so yeah, the first question is new discovery for 2020, and that would be just like any sort of jazz and instrumental music, just music that doesn't have words in it. I was definitely one of those snobs. I was like, it's not real music if it doesn't have words in it, which is such a stupid and naive thought. I always thought like jazz was just something like rich white people listen to. Um, but there were so many great documentaries that came out on Netflix later last year, or early last year, sort of early 2020, about Miles Davis, Lee Morgan, John Coltrane, Thelonious Monk, and it just got me so into jazz. Especially this record. I got this Miles Davis, John Coltrane play Richard Rodgers. This is a great like sort of beginner entry jazz of like two of the best jazz musicians probably ever. Um, I definitely have more jazz on CDs since it's a lot easier to find it at like Goodwill for a reasonable price on CDs. So I definitely have like Miles Davis kind of blue, a lot of like compilations that just have blue note compilations that just have like the best of, all of their key players in the 50s and 60s. So yeah, just instrumental, especially jazz music. And I've also found like a lot of great like 80s jazz at Goodwill lately. At least the Goodwill I frequent, there someone must have got rid of their like 80s jazz collection. I was able to find some pretty good stuff from that. So yeah, um, quarantine by. Um, this would be Safe as Milk by Captain Beefheart and his Magic Band. This is something I've been wanting for so long, and every time I try to find it, it's just really expensive, a little bit more than I'm willing to pay. Usually I'm only really willing to pay, especially on like reissues. This is a 2014 reissue, oh no, 2011 reissue. And for reissues, I like don't like paying over $30. But this was just like, I was at a record store. This was after the first initial lockdown when everything was shut down. And this was probably like the week after they started loosening things up a little bit and let businesses, be open at limited capacity and everyone has to wear masks and stuff. And there's this record store that I've been wanting to go to before the shutdown. So when I saw that they reopened, I went there, saw this. It was like $40, but I was like, screw it. I support your local businesses that are definitely probably struggling right now, so I forked up the money. But this is a great sounding, heavy duty 180 gram double LP. Such a great song. So many great songs on here. I especially love the song I'm Glad. That's such a great song. It's so weird because listening to Captain Beefheart, you're so used to is like crazy experimental like psych rock stuff, but like I'm Glad is a weird sort of like slow poppy R&B sort of love heartbreak song. It's really weird, but this is just such a great record altogether. So yeah, got that. LP defined in 2021. That would be Nina Simone's Sings the Blues. It's a great record. I think it came out in like late 60s, early 70s. It's just Nina Simone singing all these great, old school blues songs. There's this great song on that record that I've been just listening to repeatedly called Do I Move You? And that's such like a grimy, sexy, like hard rock song. It's just so good how Nina sings it. I love when she does like kind of more blues stuff. So yeah, I've been on the lookout for that. Hopefully I'll find it. A box set. I unfortunately didn't really get any box sets. They're just so expensive. I unfortunately don't really have the money for stuff like that. Obviously, like the Tom Petty and the Wildflowers, if I had to pick any box set, that would probably be it. Um, but I did find, I mean, it's technically in a box. It's not really a set, but it's in a box. It's a vinyl that's in a box. But I found this Rover Washington Jr. Soul box at Goodwill for $3, and this is on Discogs. This goes for like $30, so that's pretty cool. But it's just a 2 LP um, vinyl where he covers like people like Marvin Gaye, um, Stevie Wonder. It's a really great like funky jazz. It's just so good. Like there's what song does he do? It's You Are the Sunshine of My Life. That is such a great cover. For those of you that don't know, Grover Washington Jr. was a saxophonist. He mainly did like a lot of like studio work for a lot of famous R&B singers for that time. He famously did the song "Just the Two of Us" with Bill Withers. But yeah, he's such a great saxophonist, and this has some real deep, like sort of funky soul bits to it. It's really great. Um, Concept album. Don't really have that many, but this was kind of like the first thing that came to my mind. Um, this is The Planets. This is a Holst sort of arrangement, and this was conducted by Andre Previn, and the players were the London Symphony. But this is just such a cool, unique. I don't ever pick up orchestra music, but there's something about this. I got this at Goodwill that just like really intrigued me because all of the songs are broken down by planets. So there's Mars, Venus, Mercury, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and on the back it goes into like each of the planets / songs and tells like the story behind it and like sort of the Greek mythology behind like the significance of the planets. It's really cool. Yeah, just very sort of out there and interesting. It's like a hard thing to explain, but definitely it's probably on YouTube. Listen to it; it's really cool. Yeah. Album where the band changed direction. I didn't really go with a band, but I went with a singer. I picked Iggy Pop's Lust for Life. This is an OG original copy. I just think this is just so completely different from the Stooges. This technically wasn't his first album, because his first solo album. Technically, The Idiot was released a couple months before this, but they both came out the same year, and they were both like his first real solo efforts. But yeah, I feel like if I were to sit someone down who didn't know the history of like the Stooges and Iggy Pop, and I played the Stooges and then played Iggy Pop, and I told them they're the same singer, they'd be like, what? Like, because they just sound completely different, because the Stooges are much more hardcore proto-punk, as we all know. And like his solo stuff is a lot more sort of avant-garde. Like this is definitely like early new wave pop music. But yeah, I mean, I love this record. I'm not knocking him for it, but it's definitely a lot different than like the Stooges stuff he was doing. White label promo. So the last time I went to the thrift store, I was perusing through their records. There's a lot of promo stuff from the like sort of mid 70s to the early 80s. A lot of great, like disco pop stuff. Fortunately, a lot of it was kind of scratched up. This was one that was in pretty good shape, and it has the time strip and everything. This is LaBelle Chameleon. This is kind of like a 3-woman group with Patti LaBelle, 2 other singers. I forget their names. I think one from Sarah Durst and the other one's Nona Hendrix. But this just looked interesting. Who can't beat Patti LaBelle? When I looked up on Discogs when I got home, it says it's kind of like a funky soul disco kind of album. I don't know. It was only $2.99. I haven't listened to it yet. It's in my to be listen to pile. But yeah, that is only really the only white label promo I have, so that's why I showed that one. A compilation. I have this really great. I love the art to this. This is actually the poster that's behind me. I got this from this record. This is Propaganda. This is just some live performances of some early or kind of late punk, early new wave, late 70s, early 80s stuff. It has The Police's Landlord on here, which is such a great song. I feel like a lot of people forget that The Police started out as like a punk band. But yeah, that's a great song. Joe Jackson, also Next to You by The Police. Squeeze, David Kubinick, Bobby Henry, The Reds. Just a lot of kind of like sort of not well known, just late punk music. It's really great if you're like one of those people that doesn't like a certain kind of punk band, but you like a certain kind of punk sound. This is definitely that, sort of that late 70s, kind of early new wave 70s stuff. Album that tells a story. So I've seen various videos where people hold up an album and tell like a personal story about it, and then hold up an album and it be like sort of kind of like a concept album. That's the word I was looking for. But I'm gonna go with the first one, tell a personal story, because it's just one of my favorite stories ever. So this is Jack White's Boarding House Reach. I got this when I went to go see him when he was doing the tour for this album, probably like 2017, 2018, I think. But after I bought this, so I got to the venue super, super early, like 2 hours early. And on this tour, he wasn't allowing people to have their phones. So when you got to the venue, you had to put your phone in this little pouch, and then it would magnet close, and you couldn't access your phone. So I was bored and kind of just walking around the venue, scoping things out before I went to go to my seats. And I walked by the window and I was seeing like all of the trucks kind of like towards the back of the venue, loading gear into the venue. So I was kind of just like watching them, and I saw like probably Jack White's tour bus and his band's tour bus back there. So I was kind of like just chilling and watching them load stuff into the venue. And then all of a sudden this white sort of econ passenger van pulls in, and all of a sudden Jack White and his band come out, and I kind of didn't know what to do because we're kind of like slightly above them. We're probably like 10 feet above overlooking that area. And there was these two girls that were freaking out that were standing next to me and like pounding on the glass. And yeah, and that caught Jack White's attention, and he was like, "Oh, hey!" And then I saw that he was like staring at us, and I was holding up this album. I was like, "I love it!" Like kind of like mouthing, like, "Oh, I love this album," and he was like, "Oh, thanks," and kind of did this like weird, like dance, like kind of like this weird like jig dance, because he couldn't say anything, and we wouldn't hear him anyways if he tried to say anything. And I felt like he felt weird and didn't know what to do, so he just did that, and then he just like walked into the venue. But it's just such a weird, crazy story. After that show, I was texting my mom. I was like, Jack White did a weird dance for me and these two other girls. But yeah, that's a great story, one of my favorite concert stories. Album that needs a vinyl pressing. Another band I got to see 2018 before COVID shut everything down. Mudhoney's Super Fuzz Big Muff plus early singles. This is a great band if you don't know who they are. They're definitely I would say they're proto grunge, but they're a lot heavier than like the Seattle grunge music that we all kind of know now. They're definitely more punk, just heavy alternative rock. I think the song Touch Me I'm Sick is the greatest song that came out of that whole late 80s, early 90s alternative grunge scene. better than any Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Alice in Chains. And plus, a lot of those people looked up to people of Mudhoney. I know Kurt Cobain went to a lot of their shows when he was a kid, and before Nirvana like blew up, he toured with Mudhoney. Yeah, this is just such a great album. Their early comp stuff that was on a lot of Sub Pop comps, um, which is why I think it's crazy that this has never been released on vinyl, because this is a Sub Pop, and Sub Pop has been releasing vinyls out of the wazoo, so I don't know why they haven't done this one yet. But when they do, I'll definitely be the first one to buy it. Next question. A common album and an uncommon album. So my theme for this was great guitar playing. So obviously Jimi Hendrix experience, RU experience. Jimi Hendrix, greatest guitar player probably ever. Yeah, we all know and love him. And then this is a Kealo and Capano Beamer. This is our island home. We are sons. Yeah. Again, this was kind of just a blind buy. I really don't know what drew me to it. I don't really listen to like Hawaiian music, but I don't know. I just felt something good about it, and I picked it up. And this is a 70s release of these two young brothers that are playing sort of classic Hawaiian songs on guitar, and the guitar playing is so crazy. Like, I was listening to it, and even though they're just playing on acoustic guitars, as someone who plays guitar myself, I was like, how the fuck are they doing that? Like, it's just such a peaceful, calming music too. It's very folky, but it definitely has like that Hawaiian twist to it. But yeah, this is some of the greatest acoustic guitar playing I think I've ever heard. But yeah, this is just a great record, and I'm very glad that like a little intuitive thing in me spoke up and was like, hey, just get it. It's $2.99. If you don't like it, you can just donate it back to Goodwill or sell it. So definitely glad I picked that up, because yeah, this is just a great record. Very pleasantly surprised by that one. EPs. I picked this one up because this one always just makes me crack up, because I do a lot of thrift shopping, and I always check out the vinyls when I'm there. And I would remember I was flipping through vinyl, and I just saw this black sort of sleeve, which usually means it's like sort of like a DJ sleeve. And I remember seeing the track peeking through the hole in that sleeve called Do You Want to Fuck? And I was like, yep, have to get that and figure out what that's all about. But yeah, it's just this compilation of great sort of electronic, mid-90s electronic, just sort of DJ music. And it's actually like surprisingly good. The song Do You Want to Fuck is really cool. Sensual Wash is a good one too. Yeah, just great sort of club scene. Yeah, and then I did some research, because after I listened to this, I kind of became obsessed with it and needed to know where it came from. And it's from Chicago, Illinois. It's definitely an independent release. Not a lot of info on it, but I did find a guy from Prodigy did one of the songs. I believe it's Do You Want to Fuck? He did one of those songs. And that also, the guy that did a lot of like movie soundtracks, he did like the Space Jam soundtrack, a lot of other like late 90s sort of movies around then. He did one of the songs on here. So that was pretty cool. I just thought it was just weird and random, but it has some pretty good like dance electronic music on it. Girl group. Unfortunately, I don't really have like a girl group in my collection. I have a lot of girl singers. So going to use that and talk about Bonnie Colic. This is Wild and Recluse. Again, this was just another thrift store blind buy. Yeah, it's definitely like singer-songwritery, but kind of has some sort of psychedelic tinges to it. Like in the background of this album, there's like a pastor or reverend giving a sermon in the background, and it's just so interesting and unique, and I've never heard anything like it. Plus, Bonnie Colic is such a great singer. I've never heard of her before. But yeah, this is just such a great album. Definitely would like to find more of her stuff. So yeah, definitely look her up. Album cover you love. So this is Steppenwolf 7. Here, let me take it out of the plastic so you don't get a glare. But I just love this album. This kind of reminds me of like sort of 70s grindhouse. It's sort of psychedelic with like a dark sort of undertone to it. So cool with like the desert scenery and then the band and then like the two skulls in the back, even like how the writing's done and like the sunset. I also love the back, how it's like cowboy legs on a brick on like a brick sidewalk. I don't know, I just love this, and I kind of secretly got this just because I like the way it looked. I'm more into Steppenwolf's earlier stuff. Their late 70s stuff isn't really that great. I mean, this is actually kind of a good record, but definitely bought this just because I like the way it looked, and like this is just such a badass looking cover. It was only like $7 too, so why not? Next, albums I have listened to the most. Try this back. Definitely would have to be an Excess Kick. This was probably one of the first 5 or 10 records I ever bought. There's just something like, I feel like NXS gets thrown into like, oh yeah, they're just a great 80s band, had a couple good like pop songs, and that's kind of like all that's talked about, or like all that's mentioned about them. But they're just such a great band, and like every song on this is like great. It's a great album in general. Michael Hutchence was such a great singer and performer, as was everyone else in the band. And yeah, I just like always play this, and plus this is like a one of my mom's favorite albums, so every time she visits me, she always wants to listen to this. And yeah, it's just such a great album, and don't ever like overshadow or overlook NXS just because they were Nays bands and they had some like few good hits. Like, no, they are a great band in general no matter what. So next one, album that you had to get an OG copy of. I didn't have to have an OG copy of this, but this was just like something that just happened, and I still can't believe I have this. But this is Iggy and the Stooges Raw Power, an original pressing. It's funny because my brother for a short time worked at a thrift store that was also kind of a record store in very rural Washington, where they don't really know a lot about like Iggy and the Stooges and a lot of punk music. My brother, I guess, was like flipping through a new thing of records that they got from this guy, and he saw this, and he knows how big of a Iggy Pop and the Stooges fan I am, and he recognized this as something that I like listened to a lot. And he got me, he ended up giving this to me for Christmas, and I was like, Justin, how much did you pay for this? He's like, oh yeah, I only paid like $10 for it. For those of you that don't know, this is like a record that goes for about $200 or $300. I mean, this one isn't in great condition, so it probably won't go for that much. But like a really good, nice VG version of this goes for like $200 or $300. But yeah, I'm so thankful that my brother found this, because I definitely would have never gotten this without that sort of stroke of luck. Because this definitely, I've heard some other reissues of this, and this is just the raw, like how it was supposed to how it's supposed to sound, just like raw and not too remastered or perfect. The fact that it has some like spots where it's kind of like not the best sounding, certain spots where it's like just full on. It's just so good. And like this is one of the things that, like, if my apartment were to catch on fire, this, my signed copy of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas by Hunter S. Thompson, my cat would probably be the only three things I would grab. So yeah, thank you, brother. Last album you purchased. I actually just got this today. This is Return to the 36 Chambers, the dirty version, Old Dirty Bastard. I love ODB, or Old Dirty Bastard. He's not the greatest rapper, but he's such a unique rapper, and like his sound, you just instantly know, like, oh, that's ODB. And RZA worked on this album with him, who's also from the Wu-Tang Clan, and yeah, this just has some of his greatest like solo songs on it, and plus like ODB was just such a character, and like one of the most punk rock like hip hop artists that there probably will ever be, and I just love and respect him, so glad to have picked that up. Oh yeah, and this is a 2014 European reissue. Albums they don't get. I almost put this in my most listened to section, but I feel like I just had to talk about the shit that this album gets. This is Tattoo You by the Rolling Stones. I feel like I hear so many people citing this as like when the Rolling Stones started to get bad. I personally don't believe that there's such a thing as the Rolling Stones getting bad. Honestly, this is my all-time favorite Rolling Stones album. It's just a lot different than a lot of the stuff previously released from them, so I think that's why it was kind of sort of pushed down and marginalized. And like, yeah, there was like Start Me Up, which is kind of like a more pop rocky sort of hit, but like all the other songs on the album have this sort of kind of new wave like mystique, but also like, you know, very Rolling Stones, very rock and roll, R&B. Tops, which is my all-time favorite Rolling Stones song, is on here. Heaven, which is kind of like this weird sort of like, I almost want to call it like foggy, because it has this very like hazy, foggy like background guitar instrumental over this Mick Jagger scene. It's very like kind of echoey. It's just so interesting and experimental, at least for the Rolling Stones, experimental. And yeah, I just don't get why this gets such a bad rep in the Rolling Stones sort of sense. Yeah, I will always stand by that this is my all-time favorite Rolling Stones album. Punk album, or your closest thing to it. I love punk, so I do have a lot of punk albums, and I did have something else picked for this category, but then I heard the sad news that Sylvan Sylvan from the New York Dolls passed away a couple days ago, so I had to pick this in honor of him. The New York Dolls are such an important band to punk music. They were like really the proto-glam punk rock band before punk rock really knew what it was. Yeah, them, the Stooges, and the MC5 are probably the top three, like when you look at like proto-punk bands, especially glam rock, because, you know, they dressed in women's clothes and wore makeup and, you know, wore high heels before like that was like such like a popular thing towards the mid to late 70s. And yeah, it's just some great hard rock punk stuff on here. I remember like when I was 14 or 15 really starting to go through my punk phase, coming home from high school and just locking myself in my room and listening to the New York Dolls and watching the live concerts they did and just like being obsessed with them and dressing like them. So yeah, R.I.P. Sylvan Sylvan. I hope you and Johnny Thunders are rocking it up in heaven or wherever you're at. So that's for Sylvan Sylvan. Favorite 2020 reissue. Unfortunately, I didn't really pick up any 2020 reissues this year. I really want to get the reissue that they did of Closer by Joy Division on clear vinyl. I've heard a lot of good things about that one. Hopefully I'll pick it up soon. Don't have it yet, but I did pick out something that came out last year. This is excuse me, a reissue of Buffalo Springfield again. Um, this is such a great album. The song, I think it's Soul Man. What's it called? Mr. Soul. That is such a great like hard rock good song. Like the guitar on that and Neil Young singing on it is so great. That's kind of like the reason I picked this up. But this in general is just a really great sounding reissue. It sounds really great, very clear, plays really well on my system. Yeah, and who can beat Buffalo Springfield? So yeah. All right, that's it for this video. Yeah, this is only my second video. Please leave any suggestions you have of things you would like to see from me, vinyl related things. Yeah, I can't wait to put up more videos and be putting out videos every Sunday. So yeah, help me with ideas and things you'll be interested in seeing of my vinyl collection or music collection in general. I collect CDs and cassettes as well. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.